What if Moana was a mom with a hobby farm? That's right, we're back in Create a Sim doing more what if classic Disney princesses were iconic mom stereotypes. And I know hobby farm mom might not be a stereotype everywhere, but if you're from a more suburban, borderlining rural area, you probably have moms who may show up to different activities. I know I've seen a lot of them at basketball games and stuff where you can tell they just got done feeding the goats or milking the cows, which is honestly great. I would love to be one of these someday. Not right now, though. Someday I'll have my goats. In the film, Moana is, as usual, sick of the traditions of the family, wants to leave, go explore, blah, blah, blah. Just classic coming-of-age film. A few ways that Moana's really different. First of all, the animation style is... Well, animation style, I guess I shouldn't say. The art style is fairly different to a lot of the other films that we've covered so far in this series. But Moana is also proportioned like a child in that film, as opposed to most of the other classic Disney princesses are all more proportioned like teens or young adults. Of course, highly stylized, highly idealized, but with Moana actually being shaped more like a child and portrayed more as a young child, 13, 14, 15 years old in the film. I don't remember exactly how old, something like that. That actually made getting her face in game really challenging. In hindsight, I probably should have actually changed my perception of that a little bit, because for most of the princesses, I've just taken their face from the film and tried to put it in the game. But because the age difference is so vast, that didn't work out super great. So, by and large, I feel like my Create a Sim skills are improving tremendously. And overall, I'm really proud of how all the princesses turned out today, except for Moana's face. I feel really, really bad. I couldn't get it to work out. If you fix it though, please let me know. I'd love to see. Other feedback, of course, appreciated. And since I did that in-depth Create a Sim video, I have paid so much more attention to like what cheek and jaw and stuff presets I'm working on. I knew that it changed the shape in general. I just didn't realize to what extent it changed how the planes intersected with each other and where the lights and the shadows on the face were. Because of course it's a game. Most of what you see isn't actually like three-dimensional. A lot of it's painted on, whatever. My point is, paid more attention to that. It definitely helped. I was just really struggling with this one. I do think that the hobby farm makes sense for Moana because she wants to go out and explore, right? Like the end of the film is her going off and exploring. I think we're getting a sequel or a live action. I don't know. Moana's story isn't continuing. Don't care about that. We're just talking about the original film here today. She wants to go and explore the sea, but also she's just healed the land and she has to like take care of her people now, right? So I think having a hobby farm is great because it shows the people on the land that she's invested in healing the land and cultivating it and doing all these things and staying connected to her traditions, which are represented by the land in the film, but also gives her not like full farm responsibilities. So she could still go and explore the sea and lead her people out there as well. So I feel like that's a really fun balance. I did end up giving her the, what's the aspiration called? See, I'm looking at it on screen now while I'm recording this. It has a little cow icon. I think like, not the creature keeper, because that's actually a person in the game. Anyway, the one where you like do a farm and whatever, because that seemed good. And then as far as her traits, I gave her the hot-headed trait, which I feel is pretty self-explanatory. The child of the ocean trait, again, fairly self-explanatory, as well as the generous trait. You know, throughout the film, we're watching her give and give and give and give and give so much. The reason that the ocean loves her so much is because she shows her kind and generous heart right from the get-go of the film, right, where she's protecting little baby turtle or whatever. I feel like those made sense. I gave her some likes and dislikes as well. I don't remember what they are at this point because I forgot to write them down before I started recording. Thumbs up me. But here's like baseline Moana in Sims, why I think the hobby farm thing works great. And now, of course, it's time for terrible, terrible story retellings by Sam. So, Moana, as a movie, as usual with Disney, it pulls from historical references, it pulls from legends and lore, and it also throws on a nice steaming pile of cultural insensitivities, but don't shoot the messenger, we're just here to talk about where the story came from today. So, Moana itself actually means ocean in multiple Polynesian languages, and the movie Moana is based on the Polynesian region around 2,000 years ago. The island itself, the story itself, they aren't actually based on real people. This is probably most likely to be contrasted with Pocahontas, right, which was actually based on real historical people. While Moana wasn't necessarily based on real historical people to that regard, it is based on real cultures, it's based on real locations, and it is based on some real legends as well. And the idea of the people not traveling is actually historically documented. So the people of Polynesia, well, the people who ended up populating the Polynesian area, which is islands upon islands upon islands. They traveled the sea, they populated the islands, then they didn't move for a couple thousand years, and then started sailing and populating more islands again. So that part of the history to fairy tale to Disney movie connection, that's actually fairly accurate, which is pretty cool to see. The location also may not be based on any one particular island, but the researchers did travel to many, many, many areas, including New Zealand, Tahiti, Samoa, and Hawaii. There are a lot of Samoan references in the film, probably more Samoan than any of the other Polynesian and Oceanic cultures, but you can see a lot of them sort of sprinkled in throughout there, which, you know, on the one hand, gay representation, on the other hand, it kind of messed some stuff up. There were a lot of really questionable elements in the film as well in regards to just culture and history and all those other things that Disney's so good at messing up. Maui himself actually does exist in multiple legends, but his portrayal in the film was less than favorable, and here's actually an excerpt from a Screen Rant article I was reading about it, because you know what, if somebody else already said it, I'm just going to quote them, right? Anyway, in addition, the companion goddess to Maui, Hina, has been completely omitted from Moana's story. In Polynesian lore, gods and goddesses together create symmetry, which brings about harmony, making Maui's famous song, "You're Welcome," all the more insulting as he didn't perform those feats on his own. Another cliche that has been frowned upon by native Polynesians is the happy natives with coconuts trope shown in the Kakamora pirates that Moana and Maui encounter on their journey. Coconuts, being an integral staple of Islanders' culture, began with the series Gilligan's Island, and the idea is wholly false. The article breaks down other areas where the connection between cultural reality and Disney film just completely break down, but I did think that the just complete omission of the goddess character, on one hand, like, to make a simple children's film that's easy to follow, I get it. You have to simplify, edit. But also, kind of a bummer, right? And same with the coconuts, like, ooh, cultural, but it's not their culture. It's a mockery of culture from another culture, and it's just a hot mess. We've talked about this with the Pocahontas video, of course, and I think we spoke about it a bit with Merida from Brave. It's just classic Disney. So, to summarize all of that, every Disney film is riddled with controversy, and Moana is no exception, with simplifying the cultural references to the point of mockery. So let's talk about hobby farming again, shall we? Like I was saying earlier, I could really see Moana doing hobby farming. I think it's a really good way to, again, show the people of the land that she's like, I'm with you, I'm with the land, we are healing the land, we're rescuing it together, we're working it together, I'm invested in staying here with you, I'm not just going to leave you to go in the ocean, but also, like, I'm not running a full-fledged farm over here, I'm not feeding the people, it definitely be more of a symbolic thing. But, you know, sometimes that's what leaders have to be. They have to present more symbolism sometimes than actual practical, like, hands-on stuff, which is an interesting balance, isn't it? I also did give her some tattoos that came with the Island Living pack. No, you probably noticed. I used a lot of Island Living clothes. I do try to keep the same general color palette when I do these videos as the character wears and keep some of the cultural ties and references, but also bring it up into modern days. However, with the Island Living pack, I felt like I was able to branch that almost too easily, and I kind of forced myself to bring in multiple other packs. I also gave chipped off nail polish, because I feel like she'd probably paint her nails and then it'd immediately get rubbed off. I also didn't give her a wedding ring. Because Moana so aggressively does not have a love interest, I would expect her to have kids, but I don't know if she would be the marrying type or if she would be out and about adventuring and, find someone. I don't know what she'd be up to, honestly, but I decided to pass on the wedding ring with Moana. She's extremely independent. I did also give her stretch marks, though, because I feel like she'd be really proud of those and actually show them, like, look at, she's just such a hard worker, and she has such a pure heart. It made sense to me in the moment. Hopefully you enjoy it. Here are a quick run-through of all of the outfits that I gave Moana, of course. Let's move on to the next one. What if Aurora was a neighborhood mom? So for the vibe of neighborhood mom, I'm just kind of like, she would fit in pretty much in any game or world that you plopped her into and just be a nice, solid background character, She'd show up in your welcome wagon, she'd be at the bar, just be around, but blend into whatever's going on, not really stand out in any positive or negative way, just a nice background character. The first thing I want to say is I don't know what color her eyes are. Nobody knows what color her eyes are. In most of the movie, they're black, but there are a couple of scenes where they look blue, a couple where they look gray, and a lot of her merch has purple eyes, so I just picked a color and went with it. Fight me in the comments or tell me the true answer if you know it, but I got lost, I gave up. I also felt like her face came together the fastest today in the game. I just felt like her features and the Sims features worked out. I don't think it's necessarily a similar art style, but the way that the film was animated did seem to work fairly well for moving it into The Sims. So let's talk about the history of Sleeping Beauty. I will, of course, tell it as as family friendly as I can, but also you're here for the story behind the story behind the story, which is exactly what happened here. So Disney's version of Sleeping Beauty was based on the Grimm brothers. Once again, they make an appearance, nobody's surprised. The Grimm tale was called Little Briar Rose, which is an adaptation of The Sleeping Beauty by Charles Perrault, and that story was in turn based on the Italian story Sun, Moon, and Talia. I'm going to do my best to summarize the original Italian tale, because it's very interesting, but again, this is not child-friendly. So, we all know the basics. Nobleman, king, prince, duke, whatever, has a kid gets cursed, nobleman bans the dangerous thing, the kid is a child and gets pricked anyway with whatever the pricking material is, falls asleep, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Story summarized. Now, Basile, this is the Sun, Moon, and Talia, the original Italian, well, most original-ish. This is one of those stories where there are a lot of retellings of the story across different cultures, across Europe, through different years, lots of different versions. But in this very old Italian version, the star of the show, Talia, actually, after falling asleep, becomes impregnated against her will, we'll put it that way today, by a king who was passing by with a hunting party. So she's pregnant, and fairies do appear 9 months later to help her give birth to twins. The twins, of course, being given birth to a mother who is essentially in a coma, are unable to reach the usual nursing place and begin sucking on her fingers. This removes the splinter, and Talia wakes up. The king then returns, finds out he's a dad. They name the kids Sun and Moon. The queen is pissed and tries to eat the babies, and then throws Talia into a bonfire. The king rescues Talia, burns the queen instead, and then they get married and live happily ever after, or some such nonsense. So there's a very quick overview of the Italian version of the story. Charles Perrault removed a lot of that, and in his version, the rescuer doesn't even kiss the rescuee. He kneels in front of her, she wakes up, and they have a conversation and dinner. So, slightly different there. That is also the version of the story that Tchaikovsky's ballet is based on, so if you're thinking about a nice family outing, you should be safe. There are many other versions of the story throughout history and cultures, like I mentioned earlier, but these are the, prominent ones, sort of the main chapters in the progression of the story. And then the Grimm fairy tale changes a few more things, and that is what the Disney movie is most closely based on. Now, I actually really enjoyed this movie as a kid. First of all, the art style, I loved the art style. Oh my gosh, couldn't get enough of it. Which, honestly, looking at it right now, it does carry a lot of Art Deco elements, and I do love a good Art Deco moment, so that makes sense. Anyway, I really enjoyed the art style of this movie. I also really liked that the prince actually put work into their relationship, and he doesn't do it because he's like a prince and that's what he does. It actually feels like he has internal motivation to do these things, and I felt like that was something that didn't happen a lot in the other movies. I felt like a lot of the other male figures in the other Disney films, whether they were princes or not, kind of just exist to save the day. And Philip actually, first of all, he has a name. Prince Philip actually has a name, and he pursued her and he courted her, and he did his best to balance respecting her wishes and the boundaries that were put in place by her caretakers, and also hey, we're young and we should do stuff because we're adults now and we can do our own thinking. I really enjoyed that movie. Also the dragon scene, and just the queen was so evil. I feel like Sleeping Beauty is one of the better Disney films when it comes to actually giving multiple characters depth, drive, and a few gray areas in each character as well, which is so important when it comes to actually producing a decent, strong role model for kids, which a lot of these films sort of turn into, or are designed for, right? How many times have we heard that people want to make movies or films or books or whatever specifically to make a good role model, right? And Sleeping Beauty, I think, had that. Again, cultural nonsense may be happening. That is par for the course with Disney, but by and large, I do think it's one of their better films. These videos are so rambly. Thank you so much for watching, by the way. I like having you here. I hope that you enjoy being here. I really appreciate you guys so very much. The other thing I have in my notes here is when I was doing this, I felt like Aurora would actually keep her longer skirts, even as a modern woman, and I tried to give her a nice pink and blue outfit for each category just because, how could you not? Make it pink, make it blue, make it pink, make it blue. You have to. Right, you have to. So she actually has at least 2 outfits per category. I did do multiple outfits for Moana per category as well, trying to, again, branch out. And I just thought that Aurora would keep some of that, more classic silhouette more modest. Not like housewife, not 1950s housewife type thing. Although I did have a hair for a minute that would kind of fit that vibe. Skipped out on that. She'll look mostly like she belongs pretty much anywhere. And I do know that there are a few worlds where she probably wouldn't look quite as belongy. For example, Sulani. I don't think she would fit quite in with Sulani. Like Jungle Adventure, some of the slightly less European American worlds. But for 90% of the worlds, I think she'd fit in all right. So if you just want a background character, I think she's cute. So it works out. Oh, aspirations and traits. So I gave her the aspiration of wanting to be the neighborhood confidant or something. Adventurous, loves the outdoors, and paranoid, because how could you not be paranoid after going through all that? I don't think that's something that she's going to let go. I know I did make her like the colors pink and blue. She likes romance music. Oh, I think I made Moana actually dislike romance music. But yeah, so I'm trying to develop these characters. I really am trying to do better at Create a Sim. So if you take a look at my first batch of princesses and you look at this batch of princesses, hopefully this batch actually has some life to them. Anyway, pink and blue outfits, likes and dislikes, different traits. I will, of course, link the poses for all of these different outfits that I used to highlight them on screen down below, so you can just download those and put them in your game. What else was special about Aurora? Honestly, the eyes thing is still bothering me. I don't understand why the eyes are so different. Going down the rabbit hole of how many princesses were more or less redesigned post-film once merchandise started really getting strong, it messes with my brain. Oh, we haven't done Cinderella yet, so when we do Cinderella, we can go down that whole blue dress, white dress rabbit hole. Won't that be fun? Who all do we have left? We have Cinderella, we have Tiana, and we have somebody else. Don't remember. You'll see it on the wheel in just a second, though, when we switch over to the next princess. Who is, of course, Ariel. What if Ariel was a crafty mom? I assure you, these are not manipulated in any way. I genuinely promise that I take the princess and the mom stereotype and whatever it spins, that's what I put together. But how could Ariel be anything but crafty? You know what I'm saying? She's so invested in the human world, and can you imagine trying to knit underwater? Of course she's going to try everything the second she steps out of water. Plus, I feel like her general lack of human tradition and culture would really lend to some very interesting outfits. So overall, I had a lot of fun with Ariel. I had so much fun putting these different outfits and stuff together. I did leave her as a mermaid. I thought about making her just fully human, but then I don't know. I feel like she needed some of that mermaid. Plus, the mermaid doesn't really do very much as far as Sims go, so I felt like it was fine. It's not like I'm just deciding to turn Belle into a werewolf to resemble her relationship with the beast, So I did give her a mermaid thing. I just gave her one of the simple green tails and I moved on with life. But anyway, I really do think that the crafty notion for Ariel was spot on. Every single outfit I tried to add something that looked like she probably made it or embellished it. She's always sticking stuff to stuff, right? She would have a bedazzler, she'd be into knitting and crocheting. She definitely has a sewing machine or two or three and a serger. She's up in that crafty business. On top of all that, and being Ariel and living in the sea, I also just gave her very flamboyant tastes and crazy colors and trying to mix in some of the more aggressive makeup that I usually stay away from. Another thing in regards to makeup with these princesses is I've shared my makeup hack before with the specific layers of makeup that I use to help my Sims actually look alive and not just flat pasty clay characters. Regardless of whether you generally put makeup on your Sims or not, a little bit of blush and highlighter can really actually make them look alive. You can of course intensify the blush and highlighter if you want them to actually look like they're wearing blush and highlighter. My point is, usually I use one of the lipsticks from the MAC collaboration that is quite soft and doesn't fully cover the lip, just to give a little bit of color variation on the lips of the Sims. However, many of the Disney princesses have very distinct colored lips, so I actually gave all of them full lipstick. I know that might not sound like a big deal, but I don't do makeup in real life. I very rarely do it in The Sims, so working on that and trying to match the lip color and the lip shape was quite a challenge. I feel like I did pretty okay today, but that's why they're actually all wearing lipstick instead of my usual little half lip combination. Also, I gave her glasses. I don't know, something about being a mermaid, swimming in the sea, and then transitioning into a human, I feel like she'd need glasses. I feel like the pressure change would do a number on her eyeballs. One of the outfits, it was a little blue and white one that has, I think, a yellow sash tied around it or something. That reminded me of when she climbs out of the water in the movie and wraps herself up in a sail or whatever, so I thought that was a fun little nod to that. Now, as far as the Disney movie to fairy tale correlation here, The Little Mermaid is probably the most straightforward story yet of this series. It was written by Hans Christian Andersen in 1837, and that version has remained the dominant Little Mermaid story. It has, of course, been adapted into countless theatrical productions, animated media, films, and there's even a statue in Copenhagen where the story was originally published. Also, this might be one of the few times Disney actually stuck to the source material. So there's actually just one source material instead of half a dozen. I'm assuming you're already familiar with the film, so I'm just going to quickly run through like the bases of the story, and you can see where they overlap a ton. One of the first things that I noticed right away is in the story The Little Mermaid appears to just be named Little Mermaid. I didn't read the story. I just read a couple summaries of the story, and I didn't see a name anywhere. So just Little Mermaid, which is honestly kind of cute because she's the youngest of 6. Now in the movie, she's the youngest of 7 to represent the 7 seas, which is resembled by the different characteristics of the mermaids. So one of the sisters has black hair, and that's the Black Sea, and then Ariel has red hair, and she's supposed to be the Red Sea and whatever. So adorable, right? Anyway, so like that's one of a difference, but it's a fairly minor difference when you consider how many aggressive changes Disney has made to source material in the past. So let's do a quick terrible retelling of The Little Mermaid. So in the original tale, the Little Mermaid is the youngest of 6 children. She loves learning about humans and is allowed to look at them briefly after turning 16. Once a year, every mermaid can like go up and look at humans after they turn 16. I don't know. Anyway, her 5 sisters aren't really that interested and stop looking after a few years, but she persists and continues to long for human life. She watches the birthday celebration in Storm, like in the movie, saves the prince, and mourns not being able to see him again. She learns more about the human life and soul from her grandmother, as opposed to a seagull, or pelican, or whatever the heck that bird is. I don't remember, it's been a minute. So, she learns more about the human life and soul from her grandmother, because mermaids don't have souls, and then asks the sea witch for help. The legs for voice trade happens, but the consequences in the story are actually more dire than the movie. If her mission to marry the prince fails, she'll die of a broken heart, and even if she succeeds, the pain of her tail being removed will never leave, and her feet will constantly bleed as if she's walking over knives. Isn't that nice? Of course she takes the deal, and the prince finds a naked mute lady on the beach the next day. He really likes her and enjoys how well she dances with her magical legs, but sees her as more of a pet than a fellow human. My personal theory would be he can sense she doesn't have a soul, as mermaids apparently don't have souls unless they marry a human, but anyway, a mission not failed yet, but actively failing. Then, it turns out he thinks the princess from the next kingdom over is the one who saved his life after his birthday party, so of course now he's in love with her and wants to marry her. This is probably where the Disney movie really goes off script, as of course the other princess is actually the sea witch and Ariel wins his heart and blah blah blah. In Andersen's story, the wedding with the princess continues as planned, and the Little Mermaid's sisters trade their hair with the sea witch to bring her a magical knife so that she can kill the prince. If she steps in his blood, she will become a mermaid again, and all will be as it was, except with the dead prince, of course. She dies because mission failed, and instead of just turning into sea foam like a normal mermaid, because why would that happen, she gets to be a spirit of the air as a reward for trying so hard to get a soul. If she does good deeds for 300 years, they will give her a soul so she can go to heaven like humans. The end. Be sure to subscribe for more questionable fairy tale retellings. We still have 3 classic princesses to go. Why don't mermaids have a soul? I have questions for you. Anyway, I'm obviously never going to meet him. The story was originally published in, 1837? Yeah. So, that's a lost dream. But hey, do you know what's not a lost dream? You guys enjoying this video. So I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and creating these Sims. I'll say it one last time. All of the poses are linked directly down below. My lighting is linked directly down below. I also have this video which goes in depth on how to create Sims and how every different part of the face and body can be moved and adjusted, the differences between the different presets. I bet you're going to learn something. So I look forward to seeing you there in just a couple minutes. Bye!